there was this narrative that was being driven by Kenya Kwanza or UDA that, you know, the other side is top down as we are bottom up. Then why are their manifestos mirroring? Why is their manifesto mirroring what Azimio has unveiled over 1 month ago? Why didn't they turn their manifesto bottom up? Yeah. The manifesto is standing in the exact position where Azimio is. So then what is this bottom up thing? It is a mirage.
A very good morning to you. My name is Millicent AROKA. Thank you so much for joining us on AROKA Media this morning, coming to you from Athi River, the Kenya Meat Commission. And I am here and delighted to be having with me today the former CEO of the LAPSET project. He is also a transport and infrastructure policy expert. His name is Sylvester Kasuku. Karibu sana to the show, my dear.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm glad
it's
to be
such
here.
an honor to have you here.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so we're actually here and we'll be talking about infrastructure as well, but I just want our viewers to know that we are also breaking down the manifesto for Azimio. You are aware that we had, of course, the launch of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. We'll be having that broken down as well, but I just thought, let's talk about Azimio as well, so you can get to know what's in those promises. Let's talk about the 10-point manifesto that is for the Azimio. We'll just pick a few, especially when we look at, like manufacturing, education, health, responsible leadership. Anytime responsible leadership is actually talked about, it's something that everyone looks at like, because there's been so much cases of corruption in the country. What is Azimio going to do differently? Because every other time we have raids, just like we had the other one for Kenya Power, but people don't quite see an end to these cases. What will Azimio be doing differently so that we are really sure that this time round they're going to ensure that everyone is responsible and there is no much corruption in the country?
I would like to say that there is already a great promise in the character of the leaders in Azimio. Number one, the presidential candidate, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, is known for his no-nonsense approach to issues corruption. He has always called out, on areas that have, violated the interests of Kenyans. And he's continuously hammering that particular point. And he has never let go of his consistency in fight against corruption. We know his running mate, Senior Counsel Martha Karua, also being a no-nonsense leader, who believes a lot in fight against corruption, who believes in the rule of law, who believes in justice, who believes in proper management of institutions. And her reform agenda is equally very much in the public domain. So these are people we cannot doubt. Unlike some other leaders who see these speak for what is known as the undesirables in terms of leadership qualities, with regard to governance, with regard to fight against corruption, with regard to securing and making safe public resources. So I'm very sure that the Azimio candidate and the running mate will be able to deliver on the fight against corruption. And they've publicly declared that there are loopholes in government which they understand how they are currently draining resources, and they will go ahead to close those particular loopholes. Yeah.
Wow. Let's talk about Baba Care. The famous 6,000 bob is also in there. Could you, expound it for us, just so that we know? Is it something that once he is in government, it has to be passed as a policy, or how is it going to work?
Number one, Baba Care is a policy platform that is going to enable Kenyans to access and to receive medical care, those who are in need. And irrespective of their social status or irrespective of their economic status. So this particular policy will enable people to be treated through a government secured scheme, through NHIF, which will be able to, which will be able to meet the costs of medical care, including cost of medicine. Over 40% of costs of medical care actually usually goes to medicines and the like. And we also know that medicines are very expensive in Kenya. And we've seen the drive by the Azimio candidates towards promising to establish manufacturing plants for medicines locally. This is going to enable us to secure the appropriate low-cost supply or low-cost access to medical drugs. So this particular policy will for sure meet the aspirations of many Kenyans who have for long suffered as a result of the high cost of medical care. Yes.
Let's talk about the Kubadili plan for marginalized areas, especially in matters education. Yeah, Baba says that they're going to be employing enough and motivated teachers. Tell us about this so that no child is left out. That's what it's called.
In fact, the current state of affairs is very sad. You find teachers who are trained and have already been licensed by TSC are actually languishing in poverty. They are unemployed, and yet they are the critical mass of the human resource that we require to train Kenya's, school-going population. So this particular number is very high. You go to rural areas and you find trained teachers, literally unemployed. So the promise by the Azimio ticket, that is His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga with his running mate Martha Karua, promising that they are going to immediately employ all unemployed teachers is something that is going to come in quite handy for the education sector. Number one, we know that a number of these teachers are currently even teaching as BOM employees. And you know what they earn? Something like 10,000 shillings a month, which can barely even meet their needs. And yet they are fully trained teachers. So the best thing is actually for the government to absorb them. And we know that there is a big deficit in terms of teachers in its schools. And we've even seen NAT, the teachers union, talking about the need to employ more teachers because the current teacher population is quite low and it causes an overload. And then with that, you bring on board the new curriculum, the CBC,
yes,
which is actually quite tasking. So when you have a teacher that is overloaded with work, they can barely prepare the required lesson plans. They can barely prepare enough materials. They barely have time to balance out their work and also to pay specific attention to pupils so that they can come out with greater quality at the end of the day. So this particular plan, Kubadili plan, is very important, and particularly also for marginalized areas where you find that there are even no teachers. There are no teachers until schools get closed completely because there are no teachers. So this particular Kubadili plan will therefore ensure that where there is a need for a school will be built. Where there is a school but there are no teachers, teachers will be provided. Where there are no trained teachers that are coming from those particular locales, they will be recruited and trained as teachers so that you can also have a critical local population that are also trained as teachers. That will be very important.
Is there anything that is going to be done concerning the security as well of these teachers? Because and I think it was last year when we had so many attacks, for example, in places like Garissa, we saw many teachers, they're actually posted to go and teach there, but many were running away from there, feeling that their lives are endangered, and maybe there are particular type of teachers, maybe from a particular region that are supposed to be there. So in terms of even the security of teachers, so that they feel okay in places like Garissa and all that, is there a plan?
Yes, that's part of the Baba Kubadili plan, in that if you have, let's say, northeastern province, I mean the northeastern region of the country, having no local teachers, or having lacking enough teachers who come from the local area, even if you are to try to replace the ones who have left due to insecurity with the ones who have come from the local area. If that is the situation, then there is a need to have teachers also who come from the same region, trained.
Yes.
So that's part of the Kubadeli plan. Security, again, is also stressed on the same point, in that they will be, the government will provide security, enough security in areas where learners are. You will also find that there will also be boarding facilities to enable students who come from far-flung areas to be able to access education. So the issue of teacher training, teacher deployment, and teacher getting people to have opportunities to be teachers is something that is also tied to access to opportunities. So we should enable people who come from different parts of the country to have equal opportunities in teacher training. They should be able to get vacancies for training. They should be able to get vacancies for employment. So that's part of the Baba Kubadili plan.
Okay. Now, the Azimio side is actually thinking of increasing devolved resources, and that would help in industrialization, which is in turn going to help to create jobs. The question here, however, is, devolution came, and the resources were taken down there to the people. Yet, in several places, it did not quite work the way it was supposed to be. When you look at, different regions that we even had industries closed, things are still just the same, and this is so many years on. What is going to be different now when we say we are allocating more, or going to do more in terms of devolution? Are we looking forward to really seeing results if it's already been happening, and maybe it's just corruption that has been devolved?
This runs deep into the drive towards fight against corruption, as well as the aspiration to have good governance in the institutions of government, right from the national level up to the county level, up to the local level. So it is our belief that the promise by the Azimio government to actually ensure that fight against corruption is going to cover all levels of government is something that will actually secure the resources to be channeled into the correct areas for development purposes. Equally important is the promise to actually increase these resource allocations. We know that there is a great need for resources at the local level, particularly to match the responsibilities that have been assigned by the Constitution to the county governments. We know that there are elements of functions that need to be transferred to the county governments that are yet to be transferred completely. So the resources that are going to be increased are actually going to enable appropriate implementation of these particular functions.
Okay.
And tied with the fight against corruption and good governance.
Talking about, and this is just on democracy. We've had, especially when we were going into the nominations, different parties and all that, and this one really affected even both the Kenya Kwanza plus the Azimio side, where people felt, much as our leaders are talking about democracy, but they did not allow the same to happen within the political parties, when we had people handpicked, instead of letting people go to the election and actually pick out their own leaders. What would you say about this? Because it brought a lot of,
You and cry.
disquiet. Yes.
I would like to say that the party or the constitution of various parties clearly spell out how nominations are supposed to be carried out. And using the universal suffrage process is just one of them. It's not that it is the must. Equally, giving direct tickets is also part of that nomination process. So
when the party feels this person has more weight to go and fight on our behalf, because there are several other parties as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So people just need to appreciate that what is contained in a party constitution, really need to be, really need to be given room to operate. Yeah. And there are other parts of the world also where people don't use universal suffrage for purposes of nomination. So we should be able to live with the rules that are contained in the party, in the party constitution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We wouldn't leave this place without talking a little about what happened last night. The Kenya Kwanza, unveiled the manifesto. And they've always been on the bottom-up side of life. I keep asking this question because there are not so many people who understand what bottom-up is. I was even hearing Malwa talk the other day, and he was saying, when these people talk about bottom-up, for me, in fact, devolution was the bottom-up. Yeah. So, what do you think about them telling Kenyans that they would be giving the power to the people and not to people at the top?
I would like to say that, it's only in politics where people can go, quite a long way in sloganeering, even in areas where they don't even believe. So I believe that the issue of bottom-up, as it were, is mere sloganeering. If you read it through the manifesto, you can't see the idea about bottom-up. In fact, when Azimio launched their manifesto, you heard Kenya Kwanza saying that their manifesto has been copied. Their manifesto was not even ready. It had not been unveiled, and it was nowhere. In fact, they took 1 month after Azimio launched for them to prepare their manifesto, and to also to launch it. So, which therefore means that they are saying that Azimio is right in its policies. And even if you read through what Kenya Kwanza was presenting, it's partly, or it's majorly, mirroring what Azimio has put in its policy. And it's equally, also, in many ways, also mirroring what the Jubilee government had. Some of the areas where they are talking about provisioning are areas which are already provided for. The kind of even healthcare they are talking about is already what the Jubilee government has already done. And what is being promised on the Azimio side is actually now the big thing. If you look at manufacturing, they've touched on areas that Azimio has already touched. In fact, the Azimio manifesto is much deeper on manufacturing and going further to identify even new opportunities for manufacturing and deepening manufacturing in the country so that we can create wealth, we can create jobs, and we can stabilize the economy. We do know that manufacturing, the share of GDP for manufacturing has actually been declining from about 10.3% in 2016 to 7.5% now. We do realize that if manufacturing is declining, then we are definitely losing jobs. There are companies that were doing local production of things like, for example, tiles, animal feeds, chicken feeds, and the like. When they closed, they actually went into importation, which therefore means that the value chains that were actually supplying and trading in these goods have lost business. People have lost jobs. We have lost local resources to importation, because it's like we are now mopping resources from the economy to take to external sources where importation is being done for. So upping the game in manufacturing is one thing that is the bedrock of Azimio's manifesto. It's not just a passover, the way it has been done by the Kenya Kwanza manifesto.
Are we
the
looking
UDA
forward
manifesto.
to the Kikomis being revived, all these industries that were able to, employ so many people so that they're able to, give employment to Kenyans?
That's right, and we've seen it in the Azimio manifesto. But the manufacturing sector has actually a unique value chain that moves, that creates both back and forward linkages. For example, for you to manufacture textile, you will need to have cotton growing on the agricultural side of it. And also providing seeds, quality seeds, providing extension services is also therefore going to enable local producers to produce cotton. Then when they supply to the ginneries and the textile industries, then we will be able now to translate the produce from the agricultural side to the manufacturing side, so that we create more sustainable jobs and we create value in the economy by making sure that the garments that people wear are going to be made locally, and they are going to be much more accessible in terms of costs. And when we apply the economies of scale, when we are having mass consumption of locally produced goods, then you will find that even the prices also tend to come down. The other bits that have affected manufacturing quite a lot is the issue of energy, the cost of energy. And a lot of companies find it very difficult to manufacture under current, the rates of, the cost of energy. So the promise by the Azimio government, therefore, to reduce the cost of power is going to be a big boost to the manufacturing sector. So there are a lot of interplays in this particular, policy scenario, best espoused by the Azimio coalition. And I would like to say that there was this narrative that was being driven by Kenya Kwanza or UDA that the other side is top down, as we are bottom up. Then why are their manifestos mirroring? Why is their manifesto mirroring what Azimio has unveiled over 1 month ago? Why didn't they turn their manifesto bottom up? Yeah. The manifesto is standing in the exact position where Azimio is. So then what is this bottom-up thing? It is a mirage.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to Sylvester Kasuku. He's the former CEO of the LAPSET project, and he is, of course, a transport and infrastructure policy expert. He's been telling us as well about Azimio because he's a member of Azimio La Umoja. Thank you so much for finding time for us.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Asante sana.